again, this is the third presentation, and it would be covering what employers seek, the HR questions, the assessment, etc. Now, this presentation will open up your vision about various things regarding the questioning session of recruitment. Now, at the outset, I'm going to tell you what qualities the employers seek, what really they look for in a candidate. Apart from your qualification, apart from the big banner you come from, there are certain qualities which the HR definitely looks for. So I'm going to discuss that with you today. And I'm also going to tell you what you should be doing in an interview and what you should not be doing in an interview. Sometimes unknowingly we might exhibit certain things, and that might turn out negative. So I'm going to give you a clear picture on the do's and don'ts. Next, I'll be talking to you about how to prepare for a competency interview. And I'll be sharing with you on the procedure of how to respond to a competency question if asked in an interview. Then we'll move on to the interview assessment. I'm going to tell you in detail how the interview is actually assessed from various points. And we'll be discussing about the types of psychometric tests. And I'll also be sharing with you just a selected set of questions which are repeated by HRs over and over again. So at least you'll be familiar with answers for such kind of questions. And you might be lucky if you get a repeated question. And last of all, there'll be a question round which is offered to the candidate, where the candidate can leave a question to the HR. So normally people just ask one question: am I selected for the job? Now this is a very monotonous question. So you need to think out of the box, and I've suggested a few questions like what you can ask your HR if given an opportunity. So here we go. As you can see, the qualities an employer seek for are listed here, and I've put them in a particular pattern for my own reasons. First and foremost, good all-round intelligence. I repeat, good all-round intelligence. This is definitely a big banner because they not only want people who are academically sound, people with intelligence. I think common sense plays a big role here. The next they look for is good communication skill. Having the ability to speak good language is definitely a requirement today. Without language, you're not going to get through. And definitely language is a passport to employment, and I'm talking about the international language, English. They also look for candidates who have the ability to solve problems, not candidates who could just run away from a problem or who just hibernate from a problem. The ability to stand and fight out or to find a solution to the particular situation or problem. And of course, the capacity to do hard work. Hard work, in brackets, I would say smart work. And of course, team building, the 21st century skill, team building ability, teamwork ability, etc. And of course, enthusiasm. You got to be on your toes. You have to show a lot of enthusiasm to what you do. First and foremost, you have to show love your job, love what you do, and automatically enthusiasm sets in. And the commitment, somebody who could stay with the organization on a long term for mutual benefits for the employee as well as for the candidate. So the commitment, many times in a resume we see to work with commitment, etc., etc. But the commitment arises only when you have a challenge in your job. You just cannot, decide to quit your job and leave overnight. The commitment is putting up with whatever comes and still doing your best for the benefit of the organization as well as yourself. And the next one is to be motivated all the time, to be motivated. And in case your pitch is very low, you have to find sources where you get self-motivated to get started to go on to the right track. And the next is dedication, to be dedicated, to be loyal to your organization, to put first things first. That would be the right statement here, dedicated. And the next one is about being creative. It takes a creative mind to do wonderful things. So your creativity is definitely counted in various processes. You're not given a creativity test. It's tested right through your working environment. Now let's move on to the next slide, which talks about the do's of interview. The first thing, when you go in for an interview, you have to be on time, at least 10 minutes earlier, or try to be on time. Do not be late or do not arrive after your HR has come. The second condition here I mentioned is to dress appropriately. Your dress decides half of what you're going to take up for the rest of the interview. So dress in a professional attire and make sure you do not look like somebody who's come from the fashion industry. So dress well. And coming on to the next one, follow instructions. Students or candidates will be given a lot of instruction during your interviews, and the ability to receive the instruction, to follow it without getting frustrated is definitely expected of you. So do not show negative actions or negative attitude towards instruction. You might be asked to wait for 2 hours or may wait for half an hour somewhere, go up to the 14th floor, come back to the second floor. So you should not show any frustrations. You should just be able to go as instructed. The next thing when you go in for an interview is to give a handshake, is to show positive body language. Greet your HR, greet him for the day, whether it's in the morning or the noon, or supposing it's between the afternoon and evening. Just say good day to you, sir, or good day to you, madam. Greet them, and you should be able to lend a handshake, and the handshake given should be a very confident shake, not very vigorous and not very subtle. It has to be moderate, because the handshake also gives a kind of understanding to the HR. The next thing you must be doing in an interview is to smile and make eye contact. You're talking to a human being, you're talking to somebody who you have to impress at the end of the session. So keep smiling, but do not kind of grin or show your teeth. A gentle smile as you keep talking or keep answering the questions, and look into the eye of the HR. That shows that you're a very confident person, you mean what you're saying, and you mean business. The next one is be aware of your own movements. If you're a person who tends to move your hands too much when you talk, you need to limit your hand movement. Make sure you do not use your hands too much, so that it might irritate your HR on the other side. And of course, the saliva part, you need to handle that. Please take time to say your statements. Take time to swallow your saliva. Make sure that nothing sprinkles across the table or across the sheets on the table or even on the face of the HR. This would be very embarrassing, and I'm sure you'd also be embarrassed to apologize there. So why give room for all such kind of things? So take care of that. Next, we'll talk about watching your body language as well as the body language of the interviewer. You need to sit in a position that in a way that you're not fully rested on the seat of the chair. You sit in a way that your upper body is slightly inclined towards the table, towards the HR, and as far as possible keep your fingers on your lap, so you could avoid a certain kind of unnecessary tensions. So watch the body language of the HR. You must also be able to know whether the HR is involved in what you are talking. So watch his facial expression, watch his language. So in case he's not getting happy with what you're kind of explaining, try to cut short what you are saying. But if the recruiter is enjoying, or if he's greatly motivated, put in a little more spice and try to make it more lively for him. And the last of all is mannerism. Please use your manners when you get into the room. Just take your seat only if you're asked to be seated. Pull your chair gently, sit down without making any screechy noises, and do not sit in a relaxed position. As I already mentioned, sit in a way that your upper body is slightly inclined towards the table. And if you happen to misunderstand certain questions, apologize and ask the HR to repeat the question, and you use words like sorry, please, thank you whenever required. And when asked about a particular issue in your life or a particular reason as why you did not perform well, never put the blame on somebody else. For example, your score in math may not be up to the mark, and this might be an area of question. And here again, you cannot be saying I did not have the right faculty, or I had a faculty but I had an attitude problem, she had an attitude problem, and etc. etc. You should actually project yourself in a way that you were responsible for this kind of performance. Like the picture is here, you're trying to say that you are not blaming people for what you haven't done. You are responsible for what you have done and what you haven't done. So these are the things you got to remember when facing your interview. And over now to the continuation of the do's of the interview. You have to listen carefully, seek for clarification. Do not underestimate that, okay, this must be the question and keep answering. This can turn off the interviewer and your discussion might close and you might lose a beautiful opportunity. Next, illustrate answers with real examples and evidences. If the HR is in an inclined state where he could, listen to your examples or listen to your narration, please go ahead. But if the HR is looking for a crisp answer, accordingly you need to modulate your answer. And be positive and be very constructive in giving your criticism. As I already mentioned, do not point fingers at somebody. You try to initiate the reasons for your plus and minus. And keep your answers specific. Take time to respond. As soon as the question is given, just don't jump up with some answer. Just prepare yourself for half a second and then say what you have to say. Be alert to the interviewer's body language. If the interviewer is trying to get off the HR, off track, you need to analyze that and be very specific. Speak clearly, smile, and show enthusiasm. This again, I've put this point here because this is very, very important. I repeat, smile, speak clearly, and show enthusiasm. The next one is know what you have to say and find the opportunity. For example, if you want to tell him that you have read through the website and this was a wonderful concept put by the company, you have to create a situation where you can project that that you have read through this and it was an amazing idea and you're greatly motivated to join the company because of this upcoming project. So you have to create a room to let this happen. Or supposing you want to tell him that you have known somebody through LinkedIn, which is a professional website, you want to make them know that you have connected through this person. Find a situation or find a reason to protect this. This is only if the candidate is wanting to do this. And the don'ts of the interview: poor personal appearance. If you are not dressed appropriately to the interview, make sure the job is not yours. And this could also annoy the HR and you might have to face a little bit of negativity. So do not go with shabby clothes or with the poor personal appearance. Negative body language and attitude, being sulky, screwing up your face, you standing in a very awkward posture, and just grumbling over things. All these things should be avoided. You must hold your patience. Next, the lack of interest and enthusiasm. If you show no interest and no life, the job is not yours, that's for sure. And of course, lack of preparation. If you have not done the necessary homework for the job, then the interview is not going to be a success. You need to prepare well. Keep in mind what the company is requiring, what kind of job they want. So the job which they want, what competencies does the candidate need to hold that particular job. Make a study on it. Prepare yourself to match the competency required. And then poor knowledge of the position targeted. For example, if you're looking for a job as a secretary of a company and you have no knowledge about shorthand and typing, there's no point applying for a job like that because you have no knowledge about the competency required for a secretary. So definitely the interview is going to be a failure. The next one is failure to give concrete examples of skills. Now say if you have a good team skills or you were a wonderful leader, you should be able to specify that you had been a leader of a particular project and etc. etc. We should be able to give breakup details so that the HR is convinced about it. The next one is do not overemphasize on money and rewards. You cannot be bragging about yourself like I've been given this, I've received this award, received this scholarship. Too much of bragging also would not give you a positive result. And never show importance to money. Money is important, but not at the time or during the interview. So try to avoid such kind of issues. And the last of all is the lack of career plan, having a vague objective. See, the question might be, what do you see or where do you see yourself 5 years from now? You just cannot say, I don't know, I'm just joining your company and after 5 years I just don't see any vision. If you're going to say this is a lack of career plan. You should be positive in putting in a lot of life and a lot of contribution to to see yourself in a very stable state or a very successful state 5 years later. And as I already discussed in the resume part, having a vague objective. This is like not having an objective. Example, seeking a challenging position, etc., etc. What is a challenging position according to you? That specific objective should be on mind. And I would also advise you, the career objective written on your resume or on your CV must be remembered by the candidate, because you might get a question on it. Now, talking about preparing for a competency interview. The first thing you have to do is identify the competencies required for the job. The job that you are looking for, you have to find out what are the competencies the person needs to have to get selected. Identify that. Then review the job description. There will be a job description given in the ad or given in the call fair. So there, review it. Then define each competency in your own language. After defining, find out for each competency, find out what relevant example you can give from your experience. The next step is prepare examples for each competency. The next one is practice talking about personal experiences that relate to the competency for the job, and try to give a complete answer. As you can see here, use STAR, STAR technique. So now I'm going to tell you how to deal with a STAR response or how to give a STAR technique. So remember, you're responding to a competency question. You're trying to prove how competent you are. So the first thing you have to do here is to describe the situation. S stands to describe the situation. Next, you have to explain the task and problem that arose. That stands for T. And then you have to talk about the action you took to solve the problem. So that is again representing A. And then you will finally tell them about the result or the outcome. So that represents R. So I repeat, STAR, it stands for situation, T for task, A for action, and R for response. Say, for example, the recruiter wants to know about your leadership skill. So here you will describe the situation, and then you will tell him what problems you faced and what action you took, and finally what was the result. So when you present this in a STAR technique, the recruiter is able to get clarity, and he will definitely get impressed when you give the explanation in this flow. The objective is what did you learn from this experience? Finally, when you explain about your situation, your task, your action, and your response, also add one more thing. You can tell him, finally, out of this, I learned how to manage people who are, self-centered. You give an objective, what learning you faced during this particular situation. So the HR definitely would be impressed with your STAR response. And don't forget to give the objective of what you gained when handling the situation. Now to the interview assessment. Here we have many activities, and I've listed them all for you. The activities may include group exercises. You might be given some task to perform in a group, for example a GD, or for example a debate. Anything can happen like that. And then we might have some practical tests, like for example observation test, or think and write, something like that. And then we might have report writing. They might give you a general issue and ask you to prepare a report on the same. Or then we might have email writing. They might give you keywords and ask you to compose a mail. So here your email etiquettes would be looked upon. So the way you compose your mail, no SMS languages, and you need to sign out in the right way. So such kind of things would be looked on. And definitely English would be the overall expectation from you. And you might be given an oral presentation, give a talk about leadership, give a talk about motivation, anything. The topic can be anything. And then you might have some psychometric assessments. I'll be telling you what are the psychometric assessments as we move on in our presentation. And then we'll have different types of interviews, as I already mentioned in my second presentation. And then we'll go on for video synthesis. This is something, the trend, I guess. Some companies of late have started using this video synthesis and audio synthesis. Herein the video is played and the audio is mute. The video is played, and then the students are asked to give an inference on what they had seen. They're not there to explain what they seen. They have to give an inference, that is what they understood from the video. So sometimes some sensitive clippings, like between nations having a diplomatic meeting or having a diplomatic tie-up, or nations at war, such kind of things might be projected. This is just an example. The audio would not be provided. You'll just have to sit there, watch the video, and you will not be describing what you see. You will be giving what you observed, what you understood. That would be the expected outcome from the candidate here. And the audio synthesis, here again, only the audio would be played, and you not sit there and write dialogues or write speeches of what you heard. You will give the inference part of it. Now, types of psychometric tests. Of course, these are the aptitude tests, and definitely you will be having verbal comprehension, your verbal ability. They will be giving you this to evaluate your logic of the text, your logic of the English language. For example, the synonyms, the antonyms, word analogy, sentence pattern, sentence correction, sentence anagram, paragraph anagram, critical reasoning, reading comprehension. Such kind of things would come into the verbal part. And then we'll go on to the numerical reasoning. Here you'll be asked to interpret statistical data, and diagrammatic reasoning questions also would definitely be questions would be given to you, where you kind of your task would be more of identifying patterns, recognizing patterns, and solving the given question. And questions might be given on watch timing. So you might have to give complete certain questions in a particular time, or maybe questions relating to time. Such kind of things might be given. And you will be given psychological tests and personality tests. Psychological tests and personality tests, there's no right and wrong answer. It's just given to the candidate, and the natural answers are accepted by the recruiters. Now I'm going to talk to you about the repeated HR questions. There are many HR questions, but I just put some selected questions which have come in over and over the years. So the first question would be, tell me about yourself. Now this is definitely an opportunity for the candidate to open up the vision or the view of the HR. So I would advise the candidates to use this question as a right time to sell yourself for the job. So tell me about yourself. Quickly you can give him details about your name, your qualification, your native place, and the best of you, all your best achievements, and maybe your career objective can be discussed here, and your future plans. Do not make this answer too lengthy, because the interview has to go on, and moreover the recruiter cannot be sitting there and listening to you answering just to one question for such a long time. So try to make it as crisp as possible. The next question here is, what makes you different from the others? So here you have to tell us, or tell the HR, why you think you are very unique, you are very special, or you are the best person compared to the others. So here we always tell you to have introspection. Introspection is a study of one's own behaviors, or study of one's own self. So unless you introspect yourself, you'll be able to identify in what way you are unique. And the next question is, why should I hire you? So here again, if you introspect only, you'll be able to answer this question. You must be able to tell or convince the HR that you are a better candidate because you have certain these skills, or certain abilities, or certain targets, or certain plans. You should be able to convince them. The next question is, why did you choose this particular degree or a program? This would be a definite question to people who are freshers. So be prepared, and please do not confess to the HR that you had taken this course because of pressure, because of so many sentimental reasons. Forget all that. It might be the truth, but put that aside and project yourself that you've taken the course for your own reasons, for your career betterment, and for your own growth. The next question would be, what would you consider your major achievements to date? So you have to start off from your achievements, and only pick out the major ones and bring it right down to the latest ones. Do not just say, I was a school captain of a football team. and just stay with that. Maybe if that's your only achievement, you can stay with it. But if you've been, a person who's been, growing very academically or very lively, make sure that you mention at least 2 or 3 or 4 achievements, which would definitely be an eye opener to your HR. The next question is, what interests you about this job? So that's what I said. When you have a qualifier for a particular job, find the competency required for the job. And you can always answer the question here by saying that you have the right competencies, and you can project yourself as an advantage, and you have an edge over the other candidates who come for the interview. The next question is, what do you know about the organization? Here, I've already discussed this issue in the first presentation, research about the company. I've shared with you how to go about gaining knowledge about the organization and why not. So this answer, you can get it on presentation 1. The next question is, how do you see your career developing 5 years from now? So here again, the long-term goal is to be revealed to your HR, the long-term plan or the periodic growth which you have planned. You must have a skeleton structure of your professional life, like how you would be in the first year, the second year, and etc. You should be able to take your HR in a period of 5 years. You should make it interesting, like a short journey. The next question is, how exactly did you deal with a tough situation? Now, here, this kind of question, you need to prepare well in advance so that you're able to use the STAR technique as I discussed in the previous slides. STAR, describe the situation, tell him about the task, tell him about the action, and tell him about the response, and don't forget to add on the objective. You can openly tell your HR, sir, I will be explaining this in using the STAR technique. So when you use this word, the STAR technique, it might give a better opinion about the candidate, and it definitely gives a clarity in what you're trying to explain. The next one is, what kind of people do you find it difficult to work with? How do you handle those situations? Now, this is a question to project your area of weakness. So you should be very diplomatic in answering such kind of questions. Here, I would advise you to project yourself as a team player, not as a team leader, as a team player, that you are able to gel with anybody, and you can manage with people who have attitude problems and who are off track. The next question is, describe a team project you worked on. What problems arose? How did you deal with it? Now, the question itself is in a STAR pattern. The question itself will force you to deal with, to give the answer by dealing with the STAR technique. So why not? You can very well go again. You can very well go ahead with the STAR technique. Situation, task, action, response, and not forgetting the objective. What you learned from facing this problem. The next question is, describe a time when you took responsibility to achieve a challenging goal. Now, this is your area, okay? The ball is in your court. So you must definitely, prepare yourself to answer such kind of questions, because getting a job and surviving on the job is definitely a challenge. So the recruiter is searching for a person who can take up challenges and who can win over the challenge. So you must answer in a way that the HR gets convinced. Now, it's time for the candidate's question. Normally, the HR might ask you to leave him a question. So all candidates just, they just beat around the bush. They say like questions like, am I selected? Do I stand a fair chance of getting recruited? When can I join you? Such kind of questions. But at the end of the day, you need to strike a difference. So think about asking questions about training programs, about the latest kind of things which they do in the company, the kind of assignments they take up, the kind of projects they do. And you can also talk about the career development opportunities that the company would offer. You can discuss such kind of things. You can also talk about or ask about the projects, the current projects or the upcoming projects of the company, and the responsibilities one might have to face as a fresher. And you can also discuss, if you have a recruiter who is friendly in nature, you can ask him about his profile, in the sense, may I know your source of motivation, sir, and that brought you to this level of this particular position in this company. So if you have a friendly approach towards your HR, you may raise a question about the profile of the interviewer. And then you can also ask questions about topics raised in the interview. You might have had few questions in the interview and you did not know the answer. So maybe you can ask your HR itself for references. May I know a few websites, sir, to check out this particular answer? Or I would like to get an awareness about this particular concept which I have not known. You know, you have to put a low tone when you say such things to the HR. And you can also ask him what would be the next procedure, sir. Now, be careful when you phrase your questions. Please use the word may I, can I, please may I. You know, the kind of mannerism, the way you ask the question also, it's a kind of attitude. The person's attitude is identified in the way you project the questions. Remember, you are not the HR there, you are the candidate. You're just using an opportunity given to you. So use the opportunity rightly. And that's the end of the presentation. I hope I've taken you in the right track, and wishing you good luck and great success. All the best.